千里之行，始于足下。A journey of 1,000 miles begins beneath the feet. We now gather in the Tao to travel the journey together. So here's the chapter. What we did previously was that we divided up this chapter into 3 sections. So here are the divisions. In section 1, the introductory section, there's a whole bunch of lines that are 3 characters in length. And it's a description about the best way to live the Tao life. So when you follow the Tao, you yield, you bend. So this is not to say you are always yielding and bending, but this is to say that your overall approach to life is flexible. You use the soft approach. Be low, be worn out. To be low is to be humble. And then that's actually where we ended up last time. And the rest of this chapter will require much more explanations. So the second section, for instance, talks about the sages, how they hold to the one as an example for the world. They set an example for everyone around them and for the world. And then we go into a 4-line description of the sages, how they acted, how they never flaunted, that they were never presumptuous, they never praised themselves, they never boasted, etc. So we're going to get to that line by line, character by character in some cases. So at the last section, I want everyone to note line 14. That's translated as the world cannot contend with them. It's a continuation from line 13. Because they do not contend, the world cannot contend with them. The character for contention is the last character in line 13 and also line 14. So this pulls everything into a clearer focus, sharper focus, and makes sure everyone knows that this chapter is all about non-contention. And non-contention is, in the next line, what it says about the one who yields and remain whole. Notice that this is the same language, the same verbiage in line 15 as it was in line 1. As I talked about before, when your understanding of the Tao Te Ching is correct, when you get to the very end, you're always going to be able to tie it back to the beginning. You're always going to be able to go full circle. And indeed, the very last couple of characters there is about returning to oneself. There you have the reference to the full circle again. So we'll get to that last section in time. Where we left off last time was below and become filled. So let's go back to that. Let's go back to that and completely explore the meaning. So previously, we went through this particular slide. This is talking about yielding and bending together. They both are talking about the same thing, that in life, it is unwise to meet force with force. It is unwise to strike back against aggression with aggression of your own. And that would be, if you did that, it would be like throwing gasoline on fire. You end up making a bigger fire. If you counter violence with violence, you end up with more violence, injury, possibly death. So that's never going to be the Tao. The Tao is always more like judo or jujitsu. It's always about stepping out of the way of an incoming attack. It's always about deflecting, channeling, guiding the incoming hostile force. And if you did that, then, well, the opponent will be overextended and unbalanced, and in effect, your opponent will end up defeating himself. You don't actually have to do a whole lot. So there's actually a great story. There are many great stories in the Tao tradition about that. And I want to, in time, when we get to the right place, we already have quite a few stories to go over today. So as far as the skillful way to handle an attack, we may have to do that next time. For now, though, it is very important for us to talk about a famous example from Chinese history about the yielding and bending, the flexible approach, the soft approach. There's a great example for that I want to share with everyone. And let me show you the next slide so we can start talking about it. So the next slide, this slide starts with, as you can see, 3 characters at the top of the slide as the title. So I want to first explain what the 3 characters are, and then I can tell you the story behind it, the 3 characters. First of all, the 3 characters in pinyin, you'll see the pronunciation here. The actual pronunciation is 六尺巷. 六尺巷. What does it mean? I know that some of you are studying Chinese, so you may already have an inkling. The first character is actually an easy one because it's one of the numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, etc. So let me bring up the meaning. Literally, the first character means 6, the number 6. The second character means feet, but I don't mean legs, feet, your foot. I mean the measurement. 1 foot, 2 feet, 6 feet. So in English, we say 6 feet under as an expression. So this is the same kind of idea, 6 feet. And the last character is the character for alley. So this is actually the name for an alleyway in mainland China. And the name of the alley is the 6 feet alley. So here's what the alley looks like. This is a photo of one end of the valley. It goes toward the other end. It goes quite a ways. And I want to point out in the photo, if you take a look at the sign, look at the 3 characters that we have there, and then compare to the title of the slide, as well as the heading of the character breakdown that you see here. I think you ought to be able to see that they're exactly the same. Everyone see that? So let me tell you about this alley and the story that's behind it. So once upon a time in ancient China, in one particular town, there was a family that was quite prominent, quite powerful locally. The Zhangs, Zhang in Chinese, the Zhangs. They lived right next to another prominent family, the Wus. Wu. So the Zhang family and the Wu family were both powerful and prominent locally, and they lived right next to one another. So in the Zhang family, the young master Zhang Ying was someone who was known to be extremely intelligent and yet generous. His great intelligence allowed him to pass the ancient Chinese civil service exam with flying colors, and so he ascended to a government post. That is, he ascended to a job as an imperial official. Indeed, he was promoted to the ancient imperial capital, where he served in the imperial court as a minister. So that is a very big deal. And to further put this into context, not only were the ancient Chinese emperors wielding absolute power as a matter of birthright, that same level, that same power extended down throughout the ancient bureaucracy. So even a local governor, even a relatively minor official, wielded so much power over the subjects of the empire, the peasants, the regular everyday people. So traditionally, the Chinese people who were not these powerful government officials, they lived in fear of these officials because these officials were so much more powerful than they were. So Zhang Ying was a minister in the imperial courts, and usually he is very busy. He is handling matters of the state. One day, he received a letter from home. So he opened up the letter, he looked at it, and he frowned. There's something going on at home. There's contention. Specifically, it's contention between the Zhang family and their neighbor, the Wu family, both prominent. What was the issue? What was the problem? Well, it turns out that the two prominent families were building a wall between them, but could not quite agree on where that wall should be. Because according to the documents in the Zhang family, their property extended so far. But according to the documents held by the Wu family, it showed that their property extended the other way. So there's an overlap between the two where their properties met. And the contention was, no, this strip of land, this actually belongs to me. And then the other side says, no, it's actually ours. It's been ours since ancient times. Previously, there was no wall, so people didn't really care. And sometimes you step over one or the other, the boundary wasn't marked anyway. They just had a rough idea that, between the two families, between the two estates, roughly one particular place where the alleyway is today, that's where the boundary is at. People had a rough idea. But now, when it comes time to build a wall, well, they have to build it someplace. They had to build it at the exact boundary, but where's that boundary? They could not decide. They fought over this. They raised the matter to the local government. So the local ruler was not from either one of the families, was not from the Zhang family or the Wu family, but the local governor knew that both families were extremely powerful locally, and they did not want to offend either one. So they sat on this case. It encountered delay after delay. He didn't want to make a decision because to rule in favor of the Zhang family, you offend the Wu family, offending and the other way, and vice versa. If you rule in favor of the Wu family, you offend the Zhang family. And the Zhang family was the more powerful of the two because the head of the household, Zhang Ying, was an imperial minister. but the Wu family had enough clout that the governor really hesitated to rule in favor of the imperial minister's family. That is the reason why Zhang Ying, the minister, received this letter from home. So he thought over this matter, and then he replied to the letter with a very short message. And in ancient times, these officials were all poets. They were all highly taught. They were all highly educated. So it was a simple matter for them to respond in the form of poetry. And that's exactly what he did. We think of that as maybe a little bit strange today, but in ancient times, this was a very common practice. So first, let me show you the reply. Then I will translate it for you, and then I will explain it in detail. Okay, so I have lined up two sections here. As you can see, the top half is going to be the original Chinese. The bottom half is going to be translation. So the very first thing that I want you to do, rather than to dig into the meaning, the very first thing that I want you to do is to focus on the audio aspects of it. Ancient Chinese poetry had to rhyme, okay? There's no free-form poetry like we have today. It had to rhyme, it had to be metered, it had to be exact same characters every line. So here's what it looks like. And I want to ask you to listen carefully as I read it out in Mandarin and listen for the rhyming, okay? So the first part of it is the audio aspect of it. Here we go. 一纸书来只为墙，让他3尺又何妨？长城万里今犹在，不见当年秦始皇。Okay, I hope you detected the rhyming scheme in line 2 and line 4. Line 2 ends with 又何妨. Line 4 ends with 秦始皇. Okay, very different things, but they rhyme. That is the response from Zhang Ying back to his family. Now I'm going to explain what it means. First, I'm going to show you that the picture of the 6 feet alley that you saw right near the entrance, there's a rock with the inscription carved onto it of that original response from Zhang Ying. So here's what it looks like. So some characters have changed in the course of time. So don't be too surprised by that. But let me explain. Let me break it down for you. It goes from the top down and from the right to the left. And I realize a lot of people are not going to be used by that. You've never seen language written down in that way, but that's how it is. You can recognize the character E, meaning 1. And it goes down like that. And then here's the second line. The third line ends with 秦始皇. So again, some of the characters have changed in the course of time. But this is where I get the original, because this is carved in stone. Because it's been such a long time ago that this response was written, that the actual 4 lines of poetry has a whole bunch of variations. So for instance, the third line that says 长城万里今犹在, one variation is 万里长城今犹在, with characters flipped around. And the beginning is also different in many versions. But I've gone back to the very original as proven by the rock over here. So let me explain what this response says, what Zhang Ying, the minister, was telling his family his instruction as to how to handle this conflict. First, he said, I received this letter from home, and it's only about a wall. That's the first line. The second line says, so we give the other side 3 feet. What's wrong with that? Why not? So what? What's the big deal? That's the second line. The third line says, the Great Wall is still there. The Great Wall still stands. So this is long after the Great Wall of China was built. So he points out that the Great Wall is still standing there, but we no longer see Qin Shi Huang. Qin Shi Huang was the tyrannical ruler who built the Great Wall using forced labor. So line 3 and line 4 is about how the Great Wall still stands, but this tyrant that ordered the construction, well, he's gone. He's buried. He's dead and buried. He's long gone. The idea in the last 2 lines is to highlight the impermanence of life. That long after you and I are gone, these constructions will still remain, and people have already forgotten all of our petty conflicts. So when you are able to see life like that, why fight? Why get involved in contention? Does that make sense to everybody? So now let's attempt a translation. Translation of ancient Chinese poetry is particularly difficult because sometimes you have to alter certain things in order to retain the rhyming scheme, but you want to keep as much of the original as possible. So here's my attempt of translation. One letter only for a wall. Let them have 3 feet in between. The Great Wall is still there today. Qin Shi Huang is no longer seen. So there you go. That's a translation. Upon seeing this response from Zhang Ying, who is the head of the household, the Zhang family, the family decided that, well, this is pretty clear. We know exactly what Zhang Ying wants to accomplish. So they withdrew from the lawsuit that they have filed with the regional governor, and they voluntarily backed off 3 feet from the disputed border and said, no need to contend, no need to fight. Let's not fight. You guys can have what you want. You're our neighbors, and we're going to back away 3 feet. We're going to voluntarily give up 3 feet and just admit that you guys are right. So that's what they did. And then the Wu family, upon seeing this, gathered together in an emergency family meeting. What are we going to do? Now, part of the family says, well, we knew all along that we were right and they were wrong. Now they're admitting it. So now, let's just build a wall, exactly where we thought it should be. And actually, the dispute was actually not as much as 3 feet, so they can actually go over even more than they thought before. But then the head of the Wu family said, that's absolute nonsense. We should all be shamed by this display of humility and courtesy. Are you suggesting that we, the powerful Wu family, will let the Zhang family outdo us in being civil-minded, in treating others with courtesy and generosity? Are you seriously suggesting that? No, we're not going to take advantage of them, even though, yeah, we can if we want to. What we're going to do instead is that we're not going to be any less than they are. We're going to back away 3 feet. from the dispute. So each one of them backing away 3 feet meant that a passageway between the two properties measuring 6 feet in width was opened up. So they each built a wall along that, and the space between them became the 6 feet alley. So that's a genuine story of the Tao. It talks about non-contention. It talks about how benefits accrue from that. Like the people in that town suddenly had a very convenient passageway to go from one to the other. Both the Zhang family and the Wu family have very large estates. People used to have to go around. Now they can go through and save some time, have greater convenience as they go about their day. So they praised both families. Both families ended up looking fantastic. And the story, the legend of the 6 feet alley remained and is memorialized to this day. So before we take a break, let me just park it on just a couple of items here, and then we'll take our 5-minute break. So the first thing that I want to point out for everyone is the character that's in the middle of line 2, 尺. That's a Chinese measure, 尺. It's roughly a foot in length. Historically, it varied in length. In the Tang Dynasty, it was the shortest it's ever been was like 9 inches long. But by the time that this story took place, it was actually about 13 inches long, so slightly longer. So either way, because of the variation throughout history, you can think of 尺 as being the same as the British imperial system of measurement, foot. So that's the first thing to share with everyone. And one more I'll park here so that we can come back and maybe talk about a little bit more. Zhang Ying was the minister. He was the author of the poetry that you saw. If you look at the last 2 characters in the photo here, you'll see that this is what they are. So he pointed out that Qin Shi Huang, the tyrants who built the Great Wall with forced labor, is long dead and gone. This underscores the impermanence of life. So there's a little bit more to say about that, but I'll leave it until after the break. Let's continue. Let's resume with the story from ancient China. So the last note to let everyone know is that Qin Shi Huang is notorious as the ultimate bad guy, the ultimate tyrant from ancient Chinese history. So not only did he distort the Tao that he had learned, but he also slaughtered millions and millions of people. Now, he lived back in the days after the period of the warring states. He was, in fact, the person who united ancient China into one massive empire. And this is roughly 2,200 years ago. So a little bit after the time of Lao Tzu, which was roughly 2,500 years ago. So he certainly was aware of the Tao teachings. However, he serves as a perfect example of the person who framed the question about these ancient emperors who were horrible despite having learned the Tao. So building the Great Wall was just one of the many things that he did that was very taxing and quite abusive of his power. He was also the one who used, again, forced labor to build a great tomb for himself. And he built these terracotta soldiers, which we now see on display in museums. We see pictures and documentary about the terracotta soldiers. And this is all from the ancient tomb of Qin Shi Huang. And remember, he lived about 2,200 years ago. So quite a pivotal figure from history. And not only was he responsible for the Great Wall and the tomb, but also quite a few other things as well. One of the distortions about the Tao that he was obsessed with was about immortality. He feared death. His life was mostly driven by fear. There were quite a few assassination attempts on his life. So he wanted to live forever. So using the absolute power of an emperor, he ordered the scholars, anyone he knew, to come up with the solution for immortality. He sent scholars out to every direction imaginable, seeking the elixir of immortality. One group he sent toward an island that is off the mainland of China. So these scholars received the order to come back with the elixir of immortality, the elixir of life. But they went to that island and decided to not return because they knew that they would come back without the elixir and they would all be executed. So they settled in that remote island, the island that we know as Japan today. So the many traditions in Japan, the history of Japan, the similarities in the Tao practices, come from this particular event, the quest for immortality. Okay, so just a historical footnote. Now I want to end with this combination photo. This is what we have today. So it all comes from that ancient incident, that time when two powerful families were in dispute. Each wanted to move the boundary between them one way or the other way. And finally, the powerful imperial minister said, let's not do that. Let's back away 3 feet. And this caused the other party to follow suit. And we ended up with this alleyway. So I think a story that underscores the Tao of non-contention. So let's continue on with the rest of this chapter. Okay, let's take a look at line 3. So line 3 is what we ended up last time. And we talked about being low and becoming filled, which in this case is a reference to humility as opposed to arrogance. To be low is to have not a whole lot of preconceived notions. Reason being, if you are full of preconceived notions, then you won't learn anything new. But if you are low, you can be filled with new ideas, new concepts, new learning, new wisdom, possibly new and useful information. So here, I want to provide an emphasis that we did not get a chance to talk about last time. So I want to point the following out. The Tao of humility is not based on weakness, but sourced in strength. So in Western society, in the Western world, there's oftentimes a tendency to associate being humble and being flexible to being weak. In the traditional, authentic teachings of the Tao, it's actually the other way. So, in the example that we went over about the backing away 3 feet, the other party following through, creating an alleyway that's 6 feet wide, in that example, the imperial minister, Zhang Ying, actually had a lot of power. So he was not backing away out of weakness. If you wanted to press his case, he had the backing of the imperial rule behind him, so he could crush whatever resistance that he could expect from the Wu family. But he chose to not exercise that strength. Because he possessed so much more power as an official, that's why it was all the more important for him to be humble. In the Tao, the higher you go, the more humble you must become. The higher you climb, the lower you must be in your mind. So this is actually the same in life. If you are truly confident as a person, if you have completely figured out, where you are in life, your positions on various issues, you've done your due diligence, so you know what is right and wrong, you know what applies, what does not apply. You can be so confident about your thoughts and your reasoning that the confidence gives you the ability to be receptive, to be open and receptive. Out of that confidence, you're able to give people the courtesy, the gracious courtesy to hear them out. So that's the idea. It's actually coming from strength, not from weakness. So having said that, I now want to ask everyone to take a little quiz. So test your understanding of the Tao. Here's the question for everyone. I'll pause for a moment so you can have your say. What we're talking about here, being open to new ideas, being humble, being willing to learn, being receptive. Question is, isn't this a contradiction? Does this contradict the position in the Tao against debates? Because should you not be open to learning, opposing opinions through a debate? If you're confident, should you not just respond to a challenge, to debate, so you can learn? You can learn how other people see it. I know that the friends that I have who are still into debates, they definitely think this way. They definitely feel that they should be open and receptive to answer challenges to debates, because they tell me they want to learn opposing opinions through a debate. So let me put this question out to everyone. Is this a contradiction? So on the one hand, Lao Tzu says, don't debate. On the other hand, he says, well, you should be receptive to learning something new. So it would seem as if Lao Tzu is saying you should not live in an echo chamber where all you hear is your own opinions and the opinions of those who agree with you. You should expose yourself to differing opinions. That is exactly what many people say today. So which is it? Debate or not debate? Contradiction or no contradiction? And I'll pause for a moment to let everyone get in their say, formulate their thoughts. This should be interesting. And then I will suggest an answer. Okay. Open mind versus debates. Larry says, I guess it all depends on one's intention. I think that's definitely true. It really depends. And I side with Barry. Debating is about ego, proving one's superiority over another. That's exactly what I see. That's why I no longer wish to engage in any debates. So let me reveal the answer that I want to present to everyone, and take it with a grain of salt. Here's what I would suggest. I suggest there is no contradiction because debates only appear to be learning opportunities. Underneath a scholarly facade, it is actually a pissing contest. What is a pissing contest, you may ask? Well, a pissing contest is contention. It is a contest or rivalry in which the main concern of the parties involved is the conspicuous demonstration of superiority. So that's what debates are really about, if we're honest with ourselves. So that is why Lao Tzu remains against debates while still being open-minded to receiving new information. This means rather than to respond to a debate challenge, Tao cultivators would simply listen and observe. Because the result of your listening and observation is that either you learn something new, which is a good, positive thing, or you learn that the person who wants to debate is a toxic source of contention. And it would be in your best interest to back away from that, to put some distance between yourself and this other party. So this is exactly as Sam is pointing out. Contending from ego contrivance is different from being willing to listen. Indeed, it's very different. From Myron, more than two sides. There are always more than two sides. And that also reminds me of an example that I had heard from a Tao master. This particular Tao master that I encountered is very well educated, had gone to university, which in the early days was actually a rare thing, because back in those days, in Taiwan, people were so poor, very few could actually afford college. But this particular Tao master was college educated, went through university. So one day, the Tao master is talking about his own personal experience. He said that he knew a friend, a classmate from university, who loved to read, who absorbed a lot of information from many books that were his own extracurricular activity. They did not have a whole lot to do with the subjects that he was studying, but he was just so intellectually curious, he read up a lot. And also, he was a debating champion. He always responded to debating challenges, and he would always prevail. And he was so broadly knowledgeable that it didn't matter what the subject was. The Tao master said, you can debate any topic with him, and he would win. He would give you a complete defeat. So he would actually even volunteer to take the other side. He would volunteer to take any side. So the people who were pretty confident that they can win a debate against him, they pick what they think of as the easy side, and they end up losing. So this had a toxic effect on his social life, actually. After a while, people tended to avoid him because when you spoke with him, he would want to steer the conversation into a debate. So through the years of college, this particular classmate did not end up with friends, would not end up with lifelong friends. So after they all graduated, the Tao master lost contact with a lot of people, including this particular friend who he thought of as greatly intelligent and very articulate. It was only until decades later, when they had a college reunion, that he saw this friend again. So at that time, he was so surprised about this classmate that he knew from decades ago. Why was he surprised? Well, because he seemed like a different person, that when he spoke, he was speaking without any hint of the arrogance that he had as a young man. And as he conversed with other people, he was usually the one that was listening intently rather than to express his opinions as he used to do back in college. So he was really curious about this. What made him so different? So he had an opportunity to talk to him alone, where they got caught up on life. So they talked about what they did after graduation. So the Tao master said that when this classmate enters society, the situation was quite different for him than with other people. That is, he was constantly frustrated that he encountered one setback after another. And one day, this particular classmate finally came to the realization that he was always contending and debating against people, and he would always win, but then in the process of that, he would hurt the friendship. It would put an unavoidable damage on the relationship between himself and someone else. So what is the meaning? What is the purpose of living this way? He asked himself. And that was the epiphany that he needed. And he thought that he needed to adjust his approach to life. He needed to slowly adjust his interaction with other people, that he would present an attitude of humility instead of arrogance. Now, it wasn't easy for him. It took time, but gradually he was able to cultivate more of a spirit of generosity. So applying that to life, he would try to see everything from the other side. Even when he knew that he was right, he would not do what he did before, which was to insist on his point, reiterate his points, and to, in his own words, crush the other side. And he would constantly try to go beyond the disagreement to see the reasoning behind it. When he changed his mindset like that, when he changed his attitude, he noticed a lot more harmony manifested into his life. It came into his reality. So at work and at home, there is a peace that settled over everything, and it was conducive for him to make his progress in life. It was conducive for him to build better relationships with other people. So from that point on, he began to prosper. He started out after graduation as a low-level clerk, but he eventually, using this insight of humility, he was able to go higher and higher until at the time of the reunion, he had been promoted to a very high position within his industry. So as the Tao master was talking about this, I kept thinking to myself, was he talking about me? Because what he described is exactly how I was during my university years. I too read up widely, broadly. I was interested in everything. I knew a lot about many different things, and I would constantly try to start a debate with other people. So that did not win me a lot of fans. That did not get me a lot of friends. I alienated people. People didn't really feel like they wanted to hang around me because, we would just get into another debate anyway. So it was only after I had experienced a lot of setbacks and frustration as a result of my attitude that I came to the realization that this was not the best way to go. Now, it took me a lot longer to come upon that realization than the Tao Master's friend, his classmate. It took me until I began to study the Tao to fully realize the mistake that I have made for, at that point, most of my life. And that's when I started to make adjustments. So now I also hope to present peace and harmony to the people that I interact with. So there's a couple of true stories there. There's a true story told by the Tao Master about his personal experience with his classmates. And on top of that, you also have my own true story about my life as a younger man, a much more contentious man. And I'm still focusing on that. I'm still working on that. Although I've made some progress, I feel like there's still more progress that I can make. So this brings me to a set expression. Here, I present to you 4 characters. This is a very common expression in modern Mandarin. Indeed, this is known as a set expression, 成语. So what I want to do first is to point out one thing. Here it is. There is a 1 character difference between the heading and the slide title. Can anyone see it? Can anyone see the 1 character difference? If you can, please do me a favor and type it into your console to let me know that you do see the difference. Without needing to know what the characters are, you can compare character by character and note the difference in character. So I think everyone can tell that you see the last character is different. So why the 1 character difference? Well, I want to explain. There's some good stuff here for us to explore. So in Chinese culture, in Mandarin, in the Mandarin language, the heading, when I say the heading, I mean this right here, the heading of these bullet points, rather than the slide title, which is on top and in the middle. The heading is 成语. 成语 means a set phrase, idiomatic expression, usually consisting of 4 characters. For the people who are studying Mandarin, this is actually a big challenge because unless you grew up in the culture, there's going to be a lot of 4 character expressions that you haven't come across. And sometimes it is not immediately apparent what the set phrase, what the 成语 actually means. So first, let me explain what the 成语 is and why it is or isn't the Tao. The 成语, the 4 characters goes like 理直气壮. So 4 characters, they mean, the first character means reason or reasoning. The second character means straight, reasoning straight. The third character is the qi that you have seen previously in Qigong. When you practice your Tai Chi moves, you're moving your circulating your qi energy. So it can be translated as breath or energy. Here, as you can see, I've translated that as energy. And then the last character, 壮, means strong. So reasoning straight, energy strong. What does that mean? It's a description of someone. What it means is that when you know your reasoning is right, you speak with much power and conviction. So this is something that you can observe in everyday life as well. Without knowing this expression, you can see that sometimes when people are in an argument and one side has the conviction that they are correct, they will be especially aggressive, especially loud, and indeed even overbearing. So this is a description of aggression. So it describes a lot of people when they feel like, hey, I'm right, I know I'm right, okay? Then they act especially aggressive. So here's the Tao perspective on that. Yes, perhaps when you know your reason is right, you can speak with power. You can speak with conviction. But the Tao perspective is that at the same time, you will also alienate people so no one wants to be around you. We've seen that too. You've seen it. I've seen it. People who are quote unquote right, who have that moral certitude, eventually lose everybody around them because nobody wants to be around this a-hole. So let's explore the Tao perspective. That's the way that I want people to be. So instead of 理直气壮, it's 理直气和. It's different. The pinyin sounds like 理直气和. So the QI, that doesn't look like qi, but it's actually pronounced qi, like CHEE. And HE at the end, that's actually he. So the characters, the literal meaning of the characters is reasoning straight, energy harmonious. So energy, your energy is not overbearing, not aggressive, but harmonious. So what it means is that you know you're right, you know your reasoning is correct, and yet you still speak with peaceful harmony. So how many people can do that? It may not be easy, especially when you're having a disagreement with someone else. So in order to practice the Tao, in order to live in the Tao, this is a must. This is an absolute requirement. It's a truly powerful principle because when you practice this correctly, it means you get to be right and you don't alienate anybody. You can still maintain your personal relationships, your personal connections. That in turn leads to much greater success. And when I say success, I'm definitely not talking about monetary success. I'm talking about success in every aspect of life, at work, at home, with family and friends. And the reason is simple. We all need other people. You need other people at work. You need other people at home with your family. So no matter what you choose to do, whether for your profession or perhaps for a hobby, you need the support and love from other people. You need it from a practical sense in that you don't have all the skills you need to get a particular thing done. You also need it from an emotional perspective in that it's just something that makes life so much easier. So I hope everyone will remember this. 理直气和. Reasoning is straight, you are correct, but your energy is harmonious. Despite you knowing that you are right and someone else is wrong, it doesn't make you try to be overbearing and try to bludgeon them into submission. So let's move on. Line 4, be worn out and become renewed. Here, to be worn out can have different meaning. So for instance, when we apply it to attire, what we wear, what we dress up as, how we present ourselves, this can denote plainness in appearance. And this is referring to how Tao cultivators are not flashy when it comes to clothing. And to be flashy is to attempt to draw extra attention, when Tao cultivators are secure and confident in themselves. They don't need the extra attention. So there's another context applied to oneself. To be worn out applied to oneself can denote fatigue from diligent work. So this can refer to Tao cultivators who understand that when you work, you work. When you rest, you rest. So there's a yin and yang cycle that is going through, that one goes through from day to night, and then night transitioning back to day again. So this means you work hard during the day so you can rest deeply and soundly at night. Sounds easy, but this is actually another one of the advanced Tao practices. Let's keep it moving. Have little and receive, line 5. So if you take a look at line 3, be low and become filled. So this is the overall idea that the Tao is a mechanism that balances everything. If there's too much, the Tao takes away from the excess. If there's not enough, the Tao makes up for the lack. So this means if you don't have that much, then you're in a position to receive more. It's the Tao. It's the way the Tao works. So if you clear out clutter from your life, you open up that much more room to receive more in your life. Now, the opposite would be opposed to the Tao. And that's because having too much is never a good idea. This can be about material things, but it's not limited to material things. As you can see here in my slide, it can be about the choices. It can be about bureaucratic rules, complex rules. Whatever it is, complexity always leads to confusion. To have less is the better way to go. Okay, now we're at a pivotal character. We're back to 1 again. And you'll see the character for 1 as the last character in line 7. Therefore, sages hold to the 1. Let's dig into that. This part is important. Hopefully, everyone who's listening today had also listened to the previous chapter, Tao Te Ching chapter 21. So at the end of 21, Lao Tzu says, how do I know the nature of the source of creation? With this. This is a point to the 1, a reference to the 1. Here, he's being explicit, and because hopefully you heard and followed our scrutiny of the concept of the 1, you can immediately understand the significance here. So just like before, the 1 can mean the oneness you feel in the present moment, or the connection you feel to the Tao in the here and now. So these are not just words. As I'm talking about this, I really mean everything that I'm saying right now. So the oneness you feel in the present moment, I mean like right now. I mean this energy or whatever it is that you feel at this moment in time. the connection that we have to one another, this oneness, the connection we have not only to each other, but also to the Tao, to the present moment. That's the one. Now, the one can represent other things as well. Just like before, also like before, the one can mean the one thing you must focus on in daily life. That could be the most important thing you need to accomplish today, or it can mean the most important thing for you to accomplish in this lifetime. Now, there can be more than one thing, that's okay. But as human beings, we focus on just one thing at a time. As far as the important task, the sacred task or mission that you're on in this lifetime, it's the reason why you're here. So sooner or later, you're going to have to return to that one thing, the one thing that you have for this lifetime right now. So these are all embedded in the one. We're not done talking about the one. There's more to it, but I do want to point out number 8 so that we can tie it back to the one. So line 8 says the sages act as an example for the world. So I want to tie it in with our previous discussion on the one. If you recall, one of the important things, a practice that I mentioned was important, was the paring down of complexity. The more you can do that, the more you can master the Tao of oneness. Specifically, what I said before was that if you learn and observe, everything in life has an 80-20 split. There's usually 20% that is more important than the 80%, the rest, 80% all put together. In fact, in anything, there's 20% that has 80% importance, and the rest, the remaining 80%, has 20% importance. So you want to pare away the 80%, leaving only the 20%. People that can do this consistently begin to master the Tao. So if you know how to do this with everything, and we call this the Pareto principle after the Italian economist who coined the phrase, who wrote about the concept. So the Pareto principle is to focus on the most important 20%. Anyone that can apply this in life will do really well. But that's not where it ends. What I talked about last time is for everyone to take it to the next level, 20% of 20% is 4%. Because within the 20% that is the most important, there's also 20% of that that's more important than the rest. If you can apply the double Pareto, 20% of the 20%, you'll experience greater success. And this is especially true in the material world. People that know how to focus on the 4% most important things, they usually succeed in the material sense. If they know how to take it even further, they succeed in every other way as well, other than the material. It's what I would call the ultimate level. And that's 20% of 20% of 20%, the triple Pareto. So at the end of that, you end up with just that one thing. That is the thing to focus on. So those who master this one last ultimate application of the Pareto principle, these are the ones who are the sages, who are the ones that can set an example for everyone else. So what I have noticed as I go about observing other people in life is that to be able to focus on 20% of 20% of 20%, it's not just about being focused and disciplined. There's more to it. There's more to the story than meets the eyes. What I have found is that these people, no matter what they do, because they habitually focus on the most important thing. They always attain excellence, they're always effective, they're always efficient, and they never seem to strain themselves. They're never striving. This is the easy way to live. They're focusing not on the complexity that drive you bonkers, that stress you out, but on just the one or two most important thing at any one time. That way, they can do it better than they ever could when they were distracted. So that's what I mean by serving as an example, being able to focus on the oneness, but that's only one part of it. Now I want to talk about another part of it that's tied in to the non-contention. This chapter is all about non-contention. So that gives the meaning of the one a different flavor. And this is, I save it for last because this is actually the most important thing to talk about. The most important thing to talk about today. Another context for the one that the sages hold is unity. That is, people coming together in unity, unified as one in peaceful harmony. That's the one, like saying we are one. We work as one. We are united as one. That unity, that oneness. So the sages hold this unity as an example to the world because they see the destructive effects of contention and the great benefits of peace, the great benefits of non-contention, which is this entire chapter. So what specifically are the destructive effects that the sages see? Well, for one thing, they see the harm that you cause yourself when you engage in a conflict. More often than not, those that engage in conflicts hurt not only their enemies, but also themselves. You know, you can't hit someone else without in some way hurting your own hand. So your intent may be to hurt the other person, but you may break your knuckles. So the people who are in contention, they create a situation where a third party can stroll in and take advantage of you and your adversary, you and your opponent, in your greatly weakened state. So as an illustration, I want to share with you the story of the snipe and the clam. This also goes back to the warring states. So back when there was a kingdom, 赵国, the Zhao kingdom, 赵, and then there's a Yan Guo, another kingdom. So let's go ahead and start it as usual, that once upon a time in ancient China, there were two kingdoms who were not very powerful, and yet they were contending with one another. So behind them, you know, observing them, there's a much more powerful kingdom, Qin, which would eventually give rise to Qin Shi Huang, the tyrant that I spoke of. At this time, the king of Zhao was planning to attack Yan, the other kingdom, to address some ancient wrongdoing that he perceived, some ancient wrong. So he was discussing strategy. He was looking to organize his army to go on the attack. But there was a minister that came to him to say, Your Majesty, this perhaps is a course of action that you need to reconsider. Now, he saw that the king of Zhao was intent upon aggression. So he realized, the minister realized that he needed to come up with a different way to make the king understand the destructive path that he was on. So he said, Your Majesty, let's not talk about strategy and preparation for war right now. Let me start out. Let me tell you a story. Once upon a time, there was a clam that hadn't been to shore for a long time. So one day he saw that the sun was out, and he knew that the shore would be warm and comfortable. So he worked his way to shore, the clam, and the clam opened up to enjoy the sun, to sun itself. Now, when a snipe, a bird with a long beak, when a snipe saw this, the snipe came by and then landed next to the clam, and then quickly used the long bill that it had, the long beak, to thrust into the clam. Now, the clam was cautious and saw him coming, so he was shocked, but he reacted in time. So very quickly, he clammed up, literally, and this caught the beak of the snipe within it. So now they had a standoff. They had a situation where they were in contention, in mortal combat with one another, and neither one was willing to give up. So the snipe, the bird, said to the clam, well, time is not on your side, my friend. I don't think you can stay on shore for too long. So think about it. If it doesn't rain today, there's not going to be any water for you. If it doesn't rain tomorrow, you're going to die from being too dry. So when that happens, on shore, there's going to be a dead clam. And the clam is countering that by saying that, wow, that's what you think. I have a different idea. I think that you won't be able to last too long with this hunger that you are experiencing. If I don't open up the clam, if I don't open up for you, if I don't open up today or tomorrow, you're going to die from hunger. So tomorrow comes around, there's going to be a dead snipe on the shore. So they go back and forth like this. Neither one of them was willing to back off. They wanted to, if they were to die, they wanted to take the other party, with them. So at that moment, there's a fisherman who came by who saw the contention in progress. He's very happy, as you can see in this picture. So he very easily picked up both. He caught both the snipe and the clam. The snipe could not fly away because the beak was caught, and the clam wasn't willing to let go, so it wasn't able to escape into the water. So happily, the fisherman came away with both snipe and clam and was planning a feast that night, for dinner that night. So when this particular sage finished telling about the story, the king of Zhao woke up to the reality, and he said, Master, thank you for teaching me that story. If we two small kingdoms battle among ourselves, then the fisherman, represented by the powerful Qin kingdom, will simply stroll by and capture both of us. Then there would be no difference between our two kingdoms because we will both be dead. So because of that, this particular king decided against the attack that he had planned all this time. So that is the story of the snipe and the clam. It identifies in parable fashion why contention is such a bad idea. So that's the reason for the non-contention that we see in this particular chapter. And there's quite a bit more to go through, but now I think we need to bring it to an end with a summary. The summary, as you would expect, is going to focus on non-contention. So there are 3 keys that I want to remind everyone in the summary. First, question, are Tao cultivators pacifists? Here's the answer. Tao cultivators are not so much pacifists as they are peacemakers. What is the difference? Well, the peacemaker is not about turning the other cheek. The peacemaker is about cultivating peace within so that they have the ability to bring peace to other people. So be the peacemaker, first of all. In order to be the peacemaker, you must cultivate peace. Number 2, in accordance with this chapter, chapter 22, Tao cultivators yield and bend. This is not out of weakness, but sourced in strength. It's precisely because they're confident that they can feel very comfortable to let other people advance, to let other people talk, express themselves while they listen and learn. So to be able to have that flexibility of the Tao signifies confidence and strength, true strength. Lastly, unlike the contentious ones who push others away, Tao cultivators tend to attract people over time. And this is because no matter what they do, because of the way they interact with other people, they enjoy support and assistance from every direction. That is how we all succeed in life. Our meeting has come to an end, but the journey continues on. Let us travel safely. Until next time, may the Tao fill you with peace and happiness.